Welcome to the Are You Future Ready podcast. Are you curious about technology, innovation, and how you can stay ahead? Then you've come to the right place. In our series, we tap into the minds of people behind innovation. This podcast is brought to you by LR's Product Development and Innovation Center.
Hi, I'm Linda Gharib, Director of Brand and Communications at Wolters Kluwer, based in New York City, and your host of the Are You Future Ready podcast. Today, we'll talk about innovation, trends, and tips on what you can do to become future ready. With our guests, Andrea Megyeri, Head of Content Production in Wolters Kluwer, Hungary, joining us from Budapest, Hungary, and Ronald Lenz, Director of Justice Accelerator, joining us from The Hague in the Netherlands. Welcome to the podcast, Andrea and Ronald.
Hi, glad to be here.
Same for me. Thanks for having me.
Great. So before we get started, please share with us a bit about your background and what you do in your current role today.
Over the past 15 years, I've worked mostly in innovation programs that are at the intersection of technology and impact and sustainable development. Working on many different themes, from water, urban mobility, clean energy, and now access to justice. And in my current role at Hiil, so that's short for the Hague Institute for Innovation of Law, I run our innovation department, which includes a Justice Accelerator program that funds and trains startups with promising justice innovations in Africa and in the MENA region, and even Ukraine.
I have a background in law, so I went to law school in Budapest, in Hungary, and got an MA in law, and then I continued with legal studies. So I went on to study European law and then some lawmaking. So I studied codification. First, I started working for the Ministry of Justice, and this was around Hungary's accession to the European Union. So both of these, postgraduate degrees that I had were really handy for me at the time. And that is where I met, work with legal texts. And I didn't know previously, but I found really my vocation. And I found out that I really loved working with texts and translations of legal texts and terminology. So I was kind of a lawyer linguist thing, which, as reading is my major and biggest hobby, kind of combined my hobby with what I learned. And from the Ministry of Justice, I went to work for the Hungarian official journal publisher. So it's the official publishing house in Hungary. And from there, 10 years ago, I joined Wolters Kluwer in Hungary. And here I am the head of content production, which means I oversee content acquisition, content management, all kinds of content enrichment, and the productions.
Thank you, Andrea. And Ronald, last time we spoke, you talked about people-centered justice innovation. What is that? Can you tell us a little bit more?
Maybe it's good to let me start with a little bit of background to set the stage for this and to have a look at the huge justice gap that's there, right? So we have in total over 5 billion people, 5.1 to be exact, that lack meaningful access to justice. So if you divide that up, you see 250 million plus people in extreme conditions, right? Including modern slavery and refugees. You have about a billion and a half of people that have justice problems that they cannot resolve, and 4.5 billion people that basically are excluded from the opportunities that law provides. So, for example, they lack identity, or they don't know the law, or they live too far away from justice providers. So with this huge justice gap, we see that the resolution rates are really low. So on average, only about 24% reach a complete solution, and another 9% a partial. And the others don't even try, right? They drop out or are still trying. And this is not in the countries that we work in, across Africa or the MENA region, but also in the Netherlands. And it's interesting to know that only 5% of people with problems actually use lawyers. So this is the context in which we work. We can safely say that the current justice systems, they cannot deliver enough for this demand, despite the hard work and the large sums of money. So that's why we need innovation, justice innovation. We look for innovations that address justice problems directly for people, that are affordable, accessible, easy to understand, which we call user-friendly justice.
Really interesting. And Andrea, what innovations are you excited about right now? And can you share with us some insights about the Hungarian market?
Well, the innovation that I'm most excited about this year, or what I would really like to focus on, is around alerting. So as this last year was so much about, unsureness and even fear and, changes all around, changes in the legislation, of course. So the regulator itself was affected, and the people who are supposed to know about the law, access the law, and apply the law were also challenged by these changes. What I would like to focus on is to improve our alerting solutions. I would like to make these really customizable, make them be able to set what is relevant for them when they get the alert. So that's one of my focus points this year. And the other thing that requires innovation is jurisprudence research, and this has also a touch point with access to justice, because of course you cannot access all the jurisprudence at the moment. And I just had a talk with, the head of the Office of the Courts, and he was saying that they are challenged by anonymization, because first they have to anonymize, the case law, and then they can publish it. And then with the published case law, we can do something. Of course, what we do is for profit, so we improve our legal databases, and I would like to concentrate on this jurisprudence research development, because the so-called controlled precedent system is kind of coming to existence in Hungary. So we have to know how case law references each other. But of course, there's a public-facing side to this, to provide the information that the public is craving for.
Thank you. And I guess, Ronald, are there any examples of how innovation has solved any particular problems that you can share?
Absolutely. I mean, over the last 10 years, we've run our startup accelerator in Lagos, Nairobi, Kampala, Johannesburg, Tunis, Kiev, with a cohort each year. And what we see, we have about 7 categories, and I'll highlight a couple with examples. One-stop dispute resolution for employment and for family problems. For instance, a Dutch platform, Justice for Two, just an online platform that's really powerful and successful in arranging couples or helping couples to arrange their divorce procedures themselves and come to a shared agreement. User-friendly and automated contracts, for instance, between employer and employee. And in South Africa, there's a company called Creative Contracts, and they make comic contracts, so contracts in pictures, basically, that make it a lot easier to understand for employer and employee, and it reduces disputes tremendously. So I hope this paints a bit of a picture. Many more to share if you want to.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's really interesting to see the range of countries and problems that Hiil is solving today. And Andrea, why is innovation such hard work?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, or is it hard work? But I think we usually think of it as not easy. So, when we see that 11 out of 12 startups die, or like 19 out of 20 product innovations just fail, it seems like hard work, and it's worthwhile to think about what to do. And I think what makes innovation easier if you concentrate on the people doing it. So I think that, stress and time pressure doesn't help. I think if you let the people think and let them learn capabilities that kind of help them develop an innovative mindset or an openness, that is what will lead to innovation. I don't think actually that in our area so huge, big disruptive innovations are going to happen, since we've been, innovating and reading about other innovations in the legal field for many, many years, and nothing so disruptive as self-driving cars has emerged so far. So it's more like incremental innovation, in my opinion. But I think we really have to nurture this culture of innovation that, for example, at Wolters Kluwer, I think we have.
Why is innovation so hard? It's because you also need somewhat of a perfect storm in an ecosystem to work, right? So all of these different resources need to be in place. So from having the right data, so you understand what the actual justice problems are. Sounds basic, but can be tough to gather. Of course, you need bright talent, entrepreneurs, training programs, all of that environment, but also capital, access to capital, just growth capital at various stages, collaboration between young companies and corporates to work together. And then in our situation, it's very important to also have a close relationship with the governments that we work with.
So both of you have talked about and you really made it clear that there's no shortage of legal issues to solve. How do you know where you'll have the most impact through innovation? Which problems do you prioritize and tackle first?
Sure. So part of what we do is we perform justice needs and satisfaction surveys in countries that we work in. So massive surveys amongst thousands of people to understand what the most pressing justice problems are. Apart from the reports, we put that in our online dashboard. So we actually know per country what the problems are we want to tackle the most. And in addition, we have local hubs with local teams that understand the context a lot better than we can from The Hague.
So the way we decide which problems to prioritize and which ones to tackle first is we like to build our strategy on data. So we use data analytics to figure out what our users are looking for, what are their needs, which features are the most used, and so we make our improvements there. I also enjoy customer discovery, customer interviews, so going in person to the customer and listening to what he has to say. Even better is contextual inquiry, where you just go and look at him. He lets you, step back and just observe him doing his research. From there, you can get really good insights and build on that. So we'll know what to improve from the customer.
I think social justice and access to justice has really taken, center stage this year. What do you guys think, is crucial this decade for justice innovation to help close the access to justice gap by 2030?
Let me start. Of course, there's a lot of things that need to happen. So let me just highlight a couple that come to mind. Maybe the first one is focus on prevention. I mean, much of the solutions out there are focused on resolution. And let's say if you compare this to the health sector, we know that from the health sector, prevention strategies have added a lot more health to people's lives than the actual cures, like clean water and healthier food have done more than hospitals. So maybe a next generation fintech company for the informal economy in in Nigeria could prevent crime and fraud and theft that people encounter that don't have a bank account, right? Much more in the prevention space. So prevention, maybe one. We need a functional marketplace that welcomes innovation, public-private partnerships a lot more, because there are a lot of potential clients. If we have a market that works, you can come up with a great idea, deliver a service that is badly needed, develop it, get funding, get innovation support, find partners, set up collaborations with the government and other justice institutions.
So I agree with Ronald when he said focusing on prevention is going to help close the justice gap, which is quite huge. What I would add to this is I think we should also focus on transparency and access, to the effective access and the user friendliness of it. Because, as I said, that I enjoy working with legal texts, and, the clarity and the understandability of law is not a given, and the masses don't understand it. That's why, of course, you say you need lawyers. So, of course, this also has two faces. You can provide it to the public with what Ronald mentioned, the comic contracts, for example, or translating it for those target groups who have some kind of disability that causes them, not to actually understand what the law is saying. But even lawyers don't understand it sometimes.
So, one thing you said is it's a lot of clients, right? And really, I think that's where the role of technology and innovation really come in to make sure that how do you scale a lot of the services? So, Andrea, do you think law school prepares this new generation of lawyers to be future ready and to help tackle some of these really big problems that we're hearing about today?
No, frankly, I don't. As far as I remember, it didn't prepare me. But, because at law school, basically what they teach us is the text of law. So it can be measured in kilograms and kilometers. If you put the textbooks beside each other, the amount of a legal text we had to learn and then repeat back at the exams. But if you look at job postings, for example, today, what kind of, in the legal area, what kind of skills the employers are looking for, you see the soft skills. So where did we learn those at law school? I don't think still that they teach them, creativity or design thinking or interpersonal skills or arguing, how to argue, how to make a point, how to present, how to manage your time, things like that. So these soft and social skills, I think the legal education is lacking there. And the other thing is the digital competencies. So I don't remember, learning much about that at law school. Of course, I didn't even know that legal tech existed. And, Professor Susskind was here in Budapest the end of 2019, and he talked about, legal positions that we don't know what they are, like legal data scientists or I don't know, legal knowledge engineer or legal risk manager. And I'm sure that these positions are going to become reality. And I think that the law school is not preparing the law students, for these.
So what are some of the emerging new roles in the legal profession that we can expect to see more of in the future?
I would echo much of what Andrea said. I think it would be a great thing where the next generation of lawyers would also be basically entrepreneurs and see how to develop new services for the other market, for the masses, and be that new generation that also transforms the current justice systems and the DNA even of law firms.
While we're on the topic of learning and things are just changing so quickly, and in both of your roles, you're working across many markets. So, what do you do to stay on top of innovation in the market today and what is coming in the future? How do you continue learning?
Apart from just reading up on selected articles or listening to specific podcasts, I always like to look at other industries and how they do transitions and big transformations and draw the parallels, whether it be the health sector or energy sector or any other. I think that's really interesting. And I mean, personally, also, I'm often most inspired from connecting with specific people with different backgrounds and expertises, having conversations, learning from their perspectives.
Great. Before moving to Andrea, are there any specific publications or blogs or websites that you'd like to mention? It's always helpful for our listeners.
A book that's a bit of a Bible in our organization is Rules for a Flat World by Gillian Hatfield, also part of our programming committee, which I can highly recommend.
Great. How about you, Andrea?
I would like to just agree with Ronald when he said, connecting with other people. That's the best way to learn, and being able to meet with multidisciplinary teams, so where you can meet with not only lawyers. That can get a bit boring, seeing the way engineers think or mathematicians, doctors think about issues. It can be an eye opener, I think. So that's the best way. But it's really hard or more difficult, let's say, to keep up in this remote world. What I do is the same as you, Ronald. I read up on blogs. These are usually US feeds, so Legal Tech News and law.com and things like that.
And what advice would you give to listeners about becoming future ready?
First and foremost, find what makes your heart go faster, and be curious. If everybody says something to be true, just be very suspicious, and go outside of your comfort zone. Make mistakes, learn, try again, because I think nobody can ever be like future ready, but we can have sort of a smart way to navigate the future, because things tend to turn out differently most of the time anyway.
Being curious about the future, I think that helps. If you can keep that curiosity that children have, which is pretty hard to keep as you grow up, you have to, I think, be a bit brave. So courage is also something that needs to be there to be afraid of change, to kind of embrace the change, or at least just not fear it all the time. And you have to keep your focus. I think that helps with being innovative or being future ready, to not let your thoughts scatter all around, or you let all this information, because you want to never miss out on something and you want to read everything, and that will help you be informed. But still, I think you have to keep the focus and your balance, the balance of your mindset.
So if someone is interested in getting in touch and learning more about what you guys do, what's the best way for them to do that?
So surely check out our website at hiil.org. So Hiil is HIIL.org, where you can find a lot more on justice innovations and our trend reports, our justice dashboard. Look for the Pathfinders initiative and all its partners. World Justice Project, Namati, Open Society Justice Initiative, and just reach out to me personally. Find me on LinkedIn, and be happy to connect.
Yeah, same here. Just find me on LinkedIn. I would be very, very happy to chat and to connect.
Great. Andrea and Ronald, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to having you back again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Are You Future Ready podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode and make sure to subscribe to our Wolters Kluwer channel on SoundCloud.